Welcome, my friends, to the showdown between the Vampire Coast, who shall be led by Aranis Assault Spite, Bretonnia, who's going to be helmed by the Fey Enchantress. So on that note, guys, let's jump right into this match and have some fun. So as far as the build goes, it's going to be very defensive, which is the usual case for the Vampire Coast. Granted, you can go very aggressively. So for example, against Bretonnia, you could go with something like this. You could have a front line of deckhand mobs with halberds, backed up by Depth Guard and Mourngulls, and then you can get Aranessa to give them all bonus first large. And you could just try and bum rush Bretonnia. Now, I typically prefer the defensive style play, using your cannons and your guns, and of course your snaring abilities with Aranis Assault Spite. The old meta against Bretonnia used to be just using Noctils on foot. Of course, he has anti-large, he has armor piercing, his summons were very oppressive, but again, times have changed, and of course, summons are a lot weaker now, so I think exploring some of the other options like Aranessa, and I also think Luther Harkin on his Terror Geist is super good in this matchup as well, are very, very viable. So as far as the build goes here in the front line, it's going to be 4 groups of the zombie powered deckhand mobs. Now, going with halberds in the front line is arguably probably a little bit of a safer pick because, of course, a lot of Bretonian players are often going to be using a ton of Knights Errant and Knights of the Realm and things like that. But again, I wanted to get these guys because they're a little bit better against the Bretonian infantry like Men-at-Arms. Of course, they have a better weapon strength and things like that. So I wanted to see how they would perform in the front line against Bretonian infantry. Granted, my opponent, the Great Shetland Apache, went with a very different build. So in the front, he does have peasant mobs. I'm not going to get a chance to truly test that, as most of the meat of his army is going to be in these peasant archers, as well as a massive elite cav force, which is going to be pretty badass. So I have a front line of 4 deckhand mobs here, 2 mortars as well. Now, mortars are very good against archer builds. So for anyone who wants to learn about Vampire Coast, if you think you're going to be playing an opponent who is going to bring archers or crossbowmen or anything like that, that can outrange your handguns, mortars are the way to go. Now, it is a bit of a long game, and you do need to create a bit of space between them and your opponent's bows, but for the most part, mortars are quite good against bow infantry. In the back, we have a couple of groups of the halberds, so zombie powered deckhand mobs with the polearms, but we also have 2 groups of depth guard. Now, the depth guard are really good at just lawn mowing infantry, but more importantly, if you put them with Aranessa, Aranessa has a really cool item called the Kraken's Bane, so let's go ahead and take a look. I believe it's called Kraken's Bane. Let's check. So yes, it's going to be giving melee attack to nearby troops, which is helpful for zombies, but it also gives them all bonus first large. So if Aranessa is running around with a group of depth guard, for example, they're all going to get bonus first large. So suddenly you have these guys that have 57 melee attack and 70 weapon strength, and they're also going to have a bonus first large, and you don't need to bring the halberd variant. So not only are they going to be super good against infantry, but they're also great against cav if they're next to Aranessa. So very, very solid stuff from those guys. One of my favorite combos. On top of that, I do also have a Necrophex Colossus, so I didn't want to bring a cannon. The cannons are a little bit less mobile, and of course have line of sight issues on maps like this, so I figured that bringing the Necrophex Colossus would be better. It's basically like a mobile cannon platform and pretty good melee, 42 melee attack and 400 plus weapon strength, certainly no joke. So he's going to be peg-legging some peasants, I'm sure. We have a Vampire Caster as well. Of course, it's not going to be able to heal Aranessa, but I had some other high-value targets like Depth Guard as well as the big old Colossus here, so I figured having Invocation would be super valuable. 2 groups of guns, one of which is going to be the Black Spot, and that is pretty much it for my little, well, somewhat elite army, I guess. Depth Guard and the Colossus, of course, but a little bit middle of the road, I would say. So for my opponent's force, he does have a whole back line of the Peasant Bowmen. It looks like in total he has 4 or 5 of those. He does also have a bunch of Peasant mobs. And over here in Forest Deployment, he does have the Holy Wardens. Now, Holy Wardens are pretty solid here. They hit like trucks. They're not shielded, so they are a pretty good target, but if they're able to get into zombies and just cut through chaff and rob zombie, burn through the witches, you know, all that kind of good stuff, they are going to be in good shape here, and they look really cool. So firstly, you get some pretty dank style points for those guys. On top of that, the Fey Enchantress is going to be leading a relatively elite contingent. Well, this is actually the Damsel here with Manticore, or actually no, just Flock of Doom. So going to be dropping Flock of Doom with the zombies. Fey Enchantress is going to be bringing most of the magic with the Awakening of the Wood. That's what she said. And also he does have the Earthblood. So it's going to be Grail Guardians. Now Grail Guardians, a very rare pick. I don't know. I've never really seen them against Vampire Coast, aside from this matchup here, but they do, of course, have really good physical resist, so against like guns, they are going to have pretty good mitigation with that 20% plus the shields, and yeah, in sustained combat and grinding out zombies, I guess it's not going to be bad. So he's got 2 of those guys, and let's see what else he's got. I know he has some anti-large as well. Knights Errant here, very good backline pressure tools, cheap, shielded, fast, pretty good against zombies, and Knights of the Lionhearted, plus the Defenders of Fleur-de-Lis, and I believe he has some Knights of the Realm over here on the far side as well. So yeah, pretty well mounted yeoman actually. So pretty cav heavy army, certainly going to be a fun game. So let's get this show on the road, guys. See how it goes. So we're going to be dropping some hot mortar fire back here into the Peasant Bowmen with the Pox arrows, and the peasants are going to be opening up, getting some value here, so I'm going to be taking some damage, and I will be falling back in a second with these zombie powered gunnery mobs. In the meantime, the Necrophex Colossus is going to be shooting his cannonballs down into the archers, and the mortars are going to be going into these archers as well, and we're going to see if they make any good contact, and here it comes. Lovely, some of the peasants do get nukes there, but it doesn't look like it's a direct hit, but they're still wavering, so hopefully we can force those guys back. Now on this side of the battlefield, I did see the Holy Wardens coming out of the forest, and instead of engaging them with the deckhand mobs, which they would kill very quickly and very easily, therefore guaranteeing my opponent about 300 gold of value, I pull my depth guard from reserve here, and I'm going to be sending these berserkers in to fight the Holy Wardens. Now this is going to be a massive advantage for my troops here. Depth guard are heavily armored, plus they heal themselves, which makes them the perfect candidate to kind of fight against these low AP but high DPS units. So you can see the depth guard here are going to get mulched, and or not depth guard, but the Holy Wardens, and it should be a good situation for me. However, I did not see this coming. A massive force in the forest. You can see the Grail Guardians and all these elite troops are going to be coming in. So certainly what may have been a good situation for me initially could turn into a massive trap. So over here on the other side of the battlefield, the Zombos are doing pretty good, beating down the peasants and advancing towards the bowmen. But again, the trap has been sprung. The defenders and the cav units are going to be surging forward and getting ready to engage against my main core. However, I feel like I'm relatively prepared. I do have halberds in the back, I have guns, I have Aranessa here, and she does have the Fisher's Net, the Spear Fisher's Net. So she is going to be able to net targets down and open up some pretty good engagements, but this is going to be a scary little flank here. This big old Rohirrim force coming in. He has archers coming out of the force as well. Depth guard are taking some damage, but still trading effectively with the Holy Wardens, but this cav play is probably going to be able to destroy this guy. So the cav are going to be coming in, just riding through these filthy vampires, and burning through the witches, slamming through the ditches, Dragula, all that good stuff. In the meantime, on the other side, the knights do try and charge in here, but I do get him with the Spear Fisher's Net, and the depth guard are going to be attacking with Araness Assault Spite. Therefore, all of these depth guard with all hands hoy popped are going to be bonus first large. So we're getting some really good value against the Knights of the Lionhearted. The defenders are going to be charging in as well, but we do have some supporting fire coming in from the Black Spot and some of these other troops. In the meantime, over here in the distance, I believe we do have a bit of a Benny Hill situation, as my zombies are going to be chasing archers into the Shadow Realm, so probably not going to be terribly pertinent for the rest of the battle. But in the back, Shetland Apache is going to be getting his Knights Errant, getting ready to charge into my halberds, who are ready. They're braced, so they're going to be able to take this relatively well if he does charge in. But here, his Death Star with the Fey Enchantress is able to break through and melt down my depth guard. So suddenly, the Holy Wardens, who were in a tough situation, are healed and rearing and ready to go. So it's going to be really tough to kind of stop this big Bretonnian onslaught. In the meantime, as the archers are shooting in, my guns are giving some decent pressuring fire to the Knights of the Lionhearted here. But this map has a little bit of a tricky line of sight situation. There's a bunch of like slopes and weird inclines and things like that, so I'm not able to get the best line of sight. But the Colossus dropping some hot thunder on the Knights of the Lionhearted, and some of the pistols on top also shooting as well, or I guess they're handguns. But yeah, he has a huge flank pressure coming in here. So he's slowly, methodically working his way through the zombies, kind of like the Vampire Counts matchup when people use Grail Guardians to kind of grind through zombies and chaff. They're just so tanky that most like low tier troops just can't really hurt them that much. In the meantime, I do summon some Zombie Power Gunnery mods, which are going to be getting lanced down by some of the Knights Errant, getting some nice shots as they do get charged, but it's not going to be terribly pertinent. The guns are going to be turning about face and shooting into these guys, but again, the Peasant Archers doing a lot of work, and there's pressure from all angles, certainly very stressful. So, some of these cav are going to be charging in. Knights of the Lionhearted thinking about taking this engagement here, but it looks like Grail Guardians are going to be coming in for a massive hammering charge here as they just charge into these zombies. Now, these guys are the Black Spot, so the Black Spot is here. They are anti-large, they are armor piercing, so they're going to put up a pretty good fight here. But now we're going to be surging in with all of our forces. So the halberds are coming in, Araness is coming in, these full health depth guard with a bonus versus large are also going to be charging in. Necrofex Colossus does get temporarily shut down by some of the mounted yeomen here, and they're doing a very good job just kind of holding and pinning this guy down. So I will be switching in some of the deckhand mobs. The mortars have pretty much done their job already, so I didn't feel terribly concerned about protecting those guys at this point. I was like, I need to stabilize my Colossus and stabilize the center pocket. But again, the Fey Enchantress is one of those characters that is very good at the sustained combat and his grindy fights because of the Mist of the Lady, her Mortis Engine effect, plus she does also have Earthblood and healing capability, so it makes her pretty tough. So one of my mortars is going to be going down. This mortar does have 18 models. It's rapidly crumbling due to the pressure from the Knights. The halberds are trying to defend it, but the valiant peasants of Bretonnia are getting in there with their pitchforks and their hoes, and they're just giving me the business here in the back line. So very good stuff from Shetland, getting that very good envelopment. You can see some of the zombies getting rode down and just charged. I was about to say lance, but they weren't. But the Spearfisher's Net is going to be going down, so this is going to give me a huge opportunity to come in here, get the depth guard with their bonus versus large, and they still have 45 of the 45 models. We're also going to be dropping some summons here, so suddenly these Bretonnia Knights, which are relatively healthy, are going to be getting dragged down. Their melee defense is also lowered by the Spearfisher's Net, so they're going to be really squishy. It just wore off here, but they took a ton of damage from that, and I also have a pretty mean Death Star as well, so certainly going back and forth. In the meantime, on the far side, the Necrofex Colossus, with the support of the halberds, are able to fend off the defenders of Fleur de Lis, who are now terrified, so this is going to be a big game changer here. Getting this gun back online, meaning I have some heavy cannon fire against these Grail Guardians, is going to be huge. In the back line, the Damsel with the Lower Beast and the Holy Wardens are able to clean up some of my scraps, and I believe we still have Benny Hill going on here in the distance. Yeah, these zombies were like waddling after the peasant bowmen, so certainly trying their best out, but they're probably not going to be able to catch those guys. But the Knights are going to be charging in, Knights of the Lionhearted, with another desperate charge here, but the zombie part deckhand mobs are relatively close by, but still Shetland is able to get a couple nice little pings here onto the Necrofex Colossus, but with the support of the zombies, they should be able to drag those guys down. Now, this is really the fight of fights. We have a 40 depth guard who are being drained by the Mist of the Lady. We have halberds here. We also have the Vampire Fleet Captain, who's going to be having a couple summons left. I believe this is one of the last summons I have. I do drop a summon here, and these guys are going to be waddling after the Peasant Bowman, trying to take those guys out. So even a little bit of pressure on the Peasant Bowman probably should waver them, since there's already a bunch of penalties from their friends fleeing, fear, all that kind of good stuff. So Aranessa is really doing a good job potentially carrying here in the middle. Of course, her bonus versus large is very good, and she's going to be going in for the assassination attempt here on the damsel. So the damsel is on foot, so the bonus versus large isn't going to be as great, but of course she still has her mean peg leg, and oh, some of the Bretonnia knights. Did they just launch her over there? Did they just launch Aranessa? No, she actually was able to kind of stand on her pole and stabilize herself. But the Necrofex Colossus is going to be standing on top of the halberds, and it is going to be applying that perpetual pressure. So instead of having to grind my opponent out just with a depth guard, I now have the supporting fire, and I also do have another group of halberds here, which is going to be invaluable. 103 of those bad boys is going to be huge because it does give me a fallback option. So I can fall back on the Colossus, I can defend and force him to come in, because if he doesn't, he's going to be taking cannon fire. So some Bretonnian archers are back online. It looks like there's going to be 62 models here, so that's some pretty good fire. And honestly, these guys, of course, aren't shielded and are pretty ideal candidates for Peasant Bowman fire. So Shetland Apache going to be getting some good value here, but the bounce power is going in my favor a little bit as we do take out the damsel. So Aranessa is able to jump on the damsel, do some really good work, and she's also very tanky. Aranessa has insane combat stats, 65 and 60. I believe she has charge defense. Does she? Actually, I don't think she does. So she's getting in there, should be able to take out the damsel, which is going to get rid of Flock of Doom. Not terribly pertinent, but again, Flock of Doom is something that can be okay against zombies at any point in the game. But yeah, I guess I don't have too much stuff left, so Flock of Doom wouldn't be super valuable. Back in the main pit fight, my Vampire Fleet Captain is going to be getting surrounded by Grail Guardians. Now, Grail Guardians don't have the best damage output, but they're really good at kind of sustaining and fighting. So those guys are going to be charging into the halberds with the support of the Fey Enchantress. And that's going to be a little bit scary, of course. Miss of the Lady is going to be draining these guys, but you know, having the Captain plus Aranessa coming back is going to be quite substantial. So Aranessa here, anti-large, armor piercing, is able to fend off the mounted yeoman, and now she's going to be fighting some knights errant, which she should be up to the task of killing. She's pretty much designed to fight stuff like this. I think Aranessa is like the perfect example of like what could make a Footlord good. Or what makes Footlord good. I mean, she gives nearby buffs that are really pertinent and strong. She has a snare. She has a really, really good damage resistant, extremely tanky, probably much tankier than Grimgor with her Menon's Luck or whatever that dice ability she has. But yeah, she's a very, very solid Footlord. So right here you can see the Necrofex Colossus is going to be shooting in right here. And I mean, yeah, she does have a mount option, but honestly, I think Aranessa is often better on foot. So she's going to be charging in right here and attacking these Grail Guardians who do have the favor of the Fae, but the Vampire Fleet Captain here, plus the Spearfisher's net going down, is going to be huge. It puts him down to not a measly, but 31 melee defense here, which is going to make the halberds and the Necrofex Colossus that much more effective. Aranessa's Assault Spike going to be doing some jumping gymnastics here. Vampire Fleet Captain does also have the taunt ability, and you can see a lot of these knights are being dragged down by the halberds, plus the perpetual pressure from the Necrofex Colossus. So if we take a big overhead look at the battlefield, there is a Damsel with the Lord Beast coming back. The archers are pretty much out of ammo, so there's not going to be that much withering fire coming in. The zombies in the back were able to finally catch those peasant bowmen, so they're like, we got those guys. Now we can just disintegrate and go back to where we came from here. So you can see Aranessa is going to be leading a charge here and just stabilizing her troops. I realize I do have a little bit of ammo left, so I'm like, I don't need to chase him. I'm just going to fall back, sit on top of the Colossus, send in the chaff units to fight these brave peasants. Look at these brave sons of Bretonnia, just true heroes. Going to be charging in with their little shanks here against the Colossus. Certainly a bit of a scary engagement here. And you can see Aranessa is going to be jumping around and dunking on quite a few of these guys. Now there are some archers in the back. Some of these peasant archers do have ample ammunition. They have about 6 volleys left, and they are able to pretty much finish off my zombie powered deckhand mobs. Peasant archers are done for, and really at this point it's just the Fey Enchantress who's going to be leading a pocket of cav. So she has some Grail Guardians down here, Grail Guardians, but they're just all so beat up. And the Grail Guardians are probably going to be breaking as they do come in here. And there's going to be a shot coming in, and a shot through the heart, and you're too late. Oh man, I could get into that. I could get into all those Haggard freaking 80s songs, 80s and 90s songs. But anyways, Fey Enchantress here is going to be charging in, and she's certainly brave, but fighting against the Great Colossus is going to be a little bit tough. A taunt effect is going to be going down as well, which is really going to butter her up. And you can see Aranessa is going to be coming in, and that is probably going to be all she wrote for the Bretonnians. But man, what a well-played close game. I mean, I really thought I was in a ton of trouble when Shetland was just compromising so many positions in my army. Like the mortars were being taken out, my guns were collapsing. It was pretty disastrous, really. But Aranessa's Assault Spike with the bonus versus large augmentation, buffing up the depth guard was incredibly solid. And also the Colossus was an MVP, 141 kills. And yeah, he just did so much work. So as far as the build goes, I actually really liked Aranessa. Getting those nets against Bretonnia felt pretty good. Now, Noxalis would be a little bit more durable, and of course you'd have more bodies with the summons. But again, a cav build like Bretonnia would probably be able to pull out and mitigate the effectiveness, that's what she said, of the of the summons, right? Because they could just pull back with their mobility, wait for the summons to die out, and then just kind of swarm Noctilus. And Aranessa, with the nets and plus the bonus for his large augmentation, makes those Depth Guard incredibly good. I really actually like using her with Mourngulls, but I figured Depth Guard might be a little bit safer. Granted, their AP is so much lower than Mourngulls, so there might be an argument for Mourngulls. But the thing about Mourngulls is that if there's Knight of the Realm or Peasant Bowman, they just tear them apart very quickly. So I figured, hey, let's try out the Depth Guard. And if he does go with like a Battle Pilgrim spam, which is another way to play against the Vampire Coast, that the Depth Guard would be incredibly good. So I think they're pretty good. As far as things I might change in the build, honestly, I think I might just cut the Zombie Power Gunnery Mob here and cut one Halberd. And then from there, just get a little bit more, I don't know, get like some Scurvy Dogs. As soon as I started this battle, I was like, oh god, I don't have any Scurvy Dogs or Harass, or maybe even some Fellbats to just kind of chase those Peasant Bowmen. I feel like having that sort of pressure would be very good. But the Mortars, I feel like, can handle the Peasant Bowmen, but I feel like having Scurvy Dogs and things like that would have been invaluable in, battlefield control, forcing my opponent's hand, things like that. Honestly, you could go with the double Colossus as well. Just cut both guns, go with the double Colossus. Cut both guns in Halberd, get the double Colossus. I think that could be pretty good. So there's a multitude of ways to play against Bretonnia. I personally think it's a very hard matchup for Bretonnia. Granted, things have gotten a little bit better since he nerfs the summons. So, I don't know. Yeah, I still think Vampire Coast has the advantage here. But, I mean, I think the gap has been closed a little bit by the nerfs to summons. But I really think that just going like super wide with like Battle Pilgrims and those type of infantry can really be punishing here. But yeah, his build was good, and it certainly caught me off guard, and it was a very close game. Shetland, of course, is a very good player. So very well played to Shetland Apache. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this Vampire Coast vs. Bretonnia game. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.